Kendra's hands trembled as she held the torn fabric of her uniform against her chest, the sound of ripping still echoing in the marble hallway. Blood trickled from a scratch on her cheek, where Cassandra's diamond ring had caught her skin. The entire mansion staff stood frozen, witnessing what no one dared to stop. "You think you can walk around my house like you belong here?" Cassandra's voice dripped with venom, her perfectly manicured hand still raised. "You're nothing but hired help, and you'll never be anything more." Kendra's 5-year-old son, Isaiah, was waiting for her at her mother's apartment across town, counting on the money from this job to pay for his asthma medication. She couldn't afford to lose this position, no matter how much humiliation she had to endure. Her jaw clenched, but she kept her eyes down. Then she heard it, the sound that made everyone in the room stop breathing. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, commanding. Rafael Santos had entered the hallway. No one had realized he was home. 3 weeks earlier, Kendra Lewis stood at the servants' entrance of the Santos mansion in the wealthy hills outside Atlanta, Georgia. Her worn sneakers looked painfully out of place against the Italian marble steps. She clutched her battered purse containing her fake references, documents she'd paid too much for, but desperately needed. The morning sun was barely up, but she'd already dropped Isaiah at her mother's place and taken 2 buses to get here. This job paid 3 times what she made at the diner, and she needed it. Isaiah's medication costs were climbing, and her mother's landlord had just raised the rent again. "You the new girl?" A kind-faced older woman opened the door. She had warm brown eyes and silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. "I'm Rosa Martinez, head housekeeper. Come in, child. You look exhausted." Kendra stepped inside, following Rosa through a service corridor larger than her entire apartment. Everything gleamed: crystal chandeliers, marble floors, artwork worth more than she'd earn in a lifetime. "Mr. Santos is rarely home," Rosa explained. "But Mrs. Santos," her expression tightened, "she's very particular. Keep your head down, do your work well, and stay out of her way." Kendra nodded, filing the warning away. Her first week passed in a blur, learning routines, memorizing cleaning schedules, and trying her best to remain invisible. She saw Cassandra Peton Santos only from a distance, a tall, elegant woman with honey-blonde hair and a wardrobe that could feed a neighborhood. She moved through the mansion like she owned not just the house, but everyone in it. On her 8th day, everything changed. Kendra was cleaning the library, the 2-story room filled with leather-bound books that probably had never been opened. She was perched on a ladder, dusting the upper shelves when she heard voices in the hallway. "I don't care what excuses you have, Antonio. The shipment arrives Tuesday, and I want it handled personally." The voice was deep, authoritative, accented slightly in a way that made certain words sound almost musical. Kendra froze. Mr. Santos wasn't supposed to be home. "Yes, boss," another man replied, respectful, almost reverent. "Good. And the situation with the Koss family? They know better than to push boundaries now." The library door opened. Kendra's heart hammered. She kept dusting the same spot, praying they wouldn't notice her. "Leave me. I need to think," the deep voice commanded. Footsteps retreated. Silence filled the room. "You can turn around. I know you're there." Kendra slowly turned on the ladder and found eyes even sharper than the rumors had warned her about. Rafael Santos stood at the base of the ladder, hands in the pockets of his charcoal suit. Younger than she expected, maybe 40, dark hair, sharp features, a thin scar along his jawline, broad-shouldered, intimidating, magnetic. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll leave," she whispered. "Stay. Finish your work." He took a seat near the fireplace. "What's your name?" "Kendra Lewis, sir." "How long have you worked here?" "Kendra Lewis?" 8 days, sir." Something flickered in his expression, curiosity, maybe. "And what do you think of the Santos household so far?" "It's a beautiful home, sir. I'm grateful for the opportunity to work here." "Diplomatic," he murmured, almost amused. "Tell me, do you actually read? Or do you just dust books?" I read, sir." "What was the last book you read?" 100 Years of Solitude." Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Now she had his full attention. In English or Spanish? English, sir. But you speak Spanish. A little. I took it in high school. Raphael rose, walked to a shelf, and pulled down a worn Spanish copy of the novel. Take this. Read it. Tell me what you think. She stared, confused. Sir, why? The translation loses something essential. He placed the book directly into her hands, his fingers brushing hers. Calloused, unexpectedly rough for a man of his wealth. That's not a request, Miss Lewis. It's an assignment. The library door burst open. Raphael, I didn't know you were home. Cassandra swept in wearing a white silk robe. She stopped when she saw Kendra on the ladder holding the book, suspicion hardening her features. What's going on here? I'm working, Cassandra. This is Kendra. Housekeeping. Cassandra's eyes raked over Kendra with icy disdain. I'll speak to Rosa about scheduling staff when you're trying to work. Don't. Raphael didn't raise his voice, but the authority in it was absolute. I asked her to continue. The temperature in the room dropped. Of course, darling, Cassandra said, smiling a razor-sharp smile before leaving. You can go, Miss Lewis, Raphael said softly. And Kendra, don't let my wife intimidate you. You have as much right to be here as anyone else who works in this house. That night, in her tiny apartment, with Isaiah sleeping beside her, Kendra opened the Spanish book. She didn't know why Rafael Santos cared whether she could read Garcia Marquez in the original language. She didn't know why he'd bothered to speak to her at all. But she knew she would read it. She didn't know Rafael, in his study, was thinking about the maid with intelligent eyes. Or that Cassandra, in her private sitting room, was already planning how to eliminate this new threat. 2 weeks into her employment, Kendra had carved out a careful rhythm. She arrived before dawn, completed her assignments, and stayed invisible. The Spanish novel traveled with her everywhere. The language was difficult, but she was stubborn. Raphael remained mostly absent. Buried in business no one discussed openly. But when he was home, she felt it, like a shift in the air. Occasionally, she caught him watching her from across a room, expression unreadable. Cassandra, on the other hand, made her life quietly miserable. Tasks changed without warning. Items were misplaced and Kendra blamed. And the wheels of fate kept turning. Small, calculated humiliations, never enough for Rosa to report, always enough to bruise, became Cassandra's favorite sport. She does this? Rosa murmured one afternoon as they folded linens. Find someone she thinks is a threat and tries to break them. Don't let her win. A threat? I'm a maid. Rosa gave her a pointed look. Mr. Santos noticed you. That's all it takes. On a humid Thursday afternoon, things snapped. Kendra was cleaning Cassandra's private sitting room, the place she dreaded most. The space overflowed with luxury. Silk drapes, velvet chairs, crystal figurines that sparkled like tiny cages. Every movement felt like walking through a minefield. She dusted a shelf of photographs and paused at a wedding picture. Cassandra glowing, triumphant. Raphael beside her, smiling with eyes that were completely hollow. A man fulfilling a duty, nothing more. Find something interesting? Cassandra's voice sliced the air. Kendra spun around. Cassandra leaned in the doorway in a designer dress that probably cost more than everything Kendra owned. No, ma'am. I'll finish quickly. You're new, Cassandra drawled, stepping closer. Let me explain the rules. Raphael is mine. This house is mine. Everyone in it belongs to me. Understood? Yes, ma'am. I don't think you do. Cassandra lifted a delicate crystal swan from the shelf. Girls like you start to imagine things. Maybe Raphael noticed you. Maybe he said something polite. And suddenly you get ideas. The light danced over the figurine as she turned it. Those ideas can get you hurt. I have no ideas, ma'am, Kendra said quietly. I'm just working. Really? Cassandra's eyes narrowed. Then why did he give you a book from his private collection? So she'd been watching. He asked me to read it. That's all, Kendra replied. It wasn't a gift. The figurine shot past her face and exploded against the wall. Kendra flinched but held her ground. "Oops," Cassandra murmured with a poisonous smile. "Clean that up. And if you tell anyone about this, Rosa, Antonio, especially Raphael, I will personally make sure you never work in this city again. Don't test me." When she left, Kendra swept up the glittering shards with shaking hands. A slice of glass cut her finger, blood mixing with the broken crystal. She understood now. Cassandra wasn't angry because Raphael noticed her. She was angry because tormenting Kendra made her feel powerful. That evening, heading out through the servants' entrance, Kendra nearly collided with someone in the dim hallway. "Perdón." Raphael steadied her, dressed casually. Jeans and a black shirt, surprisingly unguarded. "Working late?" "Yes, sir. I'm heading home." His gaze fell to her hand. "What happened?" "A small accident," she said, though the bandage was already seeping red. Raphael gently took her hand before she could hide it. "What kind of accident?" "I broke a figurine. My fault." His thumb brushed her wrist, light, searching, and her pulse answered before she could control it. He was close enough that she could smell the soft, expensive cologne clinging to his shirt. "Cassandra's sitting room," he said quietly. "Sir, I really should go." "Did she throw it at you?" The question froze the air. She knew the safest choice was to lie. But something in his expression, concern wrapped in controlled anger, made her pause. "It was an accident," she whispered. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I can give you, Mr. Santos." They stood silently, her hand still in his, tension straining the quiet. He exhaled, releasing her gently. "You've been reading." "Yes, sir." "What do you think?" "It's beautiful," she said, surprising herself. "Heartbreaking." The Spanish version feels alive, like the words carry magic. A flicker softened his expression. "Exactly. Magic realism isn't magic. It's truth seen through uncommon eyes." He nodded toward the door. "Go home. It's late." She turned, but he stopped her again. "Kendra, if my wife threatens you, I want to know." She faced him, startled. He looked darker, more dangerous in the shadows. "That's not a suggestion," he added. "It's an order." "Yes, sir." She left with her heart pounding, confused and deeply unsettled. Raphael was dangerous in a way she didn't understand. Cold one moment, unexpectedly gentle the next. She needed distance. She needed boundaries. She needed to protect her job, her son, her entire fragile world. But later, reading Garcia Marquez on the bus, she caught herself smiling at a passage and wondering what Raphael might say about it. And she knew she was already in too deep. Raphael, alone in his study, couldn't stop thinking about her either. The quiet determination in her eyes, the exhaustion she tried to hide, the dignity she held onto even when cornered. Someone like her had no place in his world, and yet she had unsettled something in him he hadn't felt in years. Dangerous. For both of them. The next week chaos arrived in the form of Isabella, Raphael's younger sister, a whirlwind of charm and sharp wit. Kendra met her in the foyer, struck by the woman's elegance and warmth. "You must be Kendra," Isabella said, grasping her hand. "Raphael told me you're reading 100 Years of Solitude in Spanish." "That's impressive." "I'm trying," Kendra murmured. "Call me Isabella." "Ma'am," makes me feel ancient. She leaned closer conspiratorially. "My brother doesn't notice people. So if he noticed you, trust me. There's something special about you." Before Kendra could reply, she was whisked away to help with luggage. But all day, she felt Isabella's eyes on her. Not judging, just curious, almost approving. The disaster came that afternoon. Kendra was carrying a tray of crystal glasses when she heard a small voice echo through the hallway. "Mama!" Her heart stopped. She turned to see Isaiah, held by a confused security guard, his face streaked with tears, inhaler clutched tight. "Baby!" She dropped the tray onto a side table and ran to him. "What are you doing here?" "Grandma fell," he sobbed. "She told me to come find you. She gave me the paper." The neighbor called the ambulance. The world spun, her mother, an ambulance, and her son standing in the one place she told her family never to come. What is this? Cassandra's voice rang out like a blade. She appeared on the staircase, eyes blazing. Who is that child? My son, ma'am, Kendra answered, pulling Isaiah close. There's a family emergency. I'll take him home right now. You have a son you never disclosed? Cassandra hissed, descending. This is grounds for immediate termination. He's 5, Kendra pleaded. He's scared. My mother is on the way to the hospital. You can fire me. Just let me take him home. You're not going anywhere until… What's going on here? Raphael's voice boomed through the foyer. He took in the scene with cold precision. Cassandra fuming, Kendra trembling, the guard unsure, Isaiah crying. Cassandra straightened. This maid lied to us. She has a child and brought him into our home. I'm terminating her immediately. Raphael's gaze shifted to Isaiah, who peeked out from behind Kendra's legs. For a long, suspended moment, no one moved. Then Raphael descended the stairs, his expression unreadable. He walked past Cassandra without acknowledging her, stopping directly in front of Kendra and the trembling boy. He crouched to Isaiah's eye level. What's your name? Isaiah, the boy whispered, clutching his inhaler. That's a strong name. Isaiah, I'm Raphael. Your mom works here, and she's very good at her job. His attention flicked to the inhaler. Do you need that right now? Isaiah shook his head. Good. Can you be brave for a few more minutes while I help your mom? Isaiah nodded. Raphael rose, turning to Cassandra. His voice was soft, but everyone felt the danger beneath it. Go to your room. Excuse me? I said go to your room. Now. Cassandra's face flared red. Raphael, you can't possibly. I can, and I am. His voice didn't rise, yet the authority was absolute. This is my house. These are my employees. And you just tried to fire someone during a family emergency involving a child. I'll deal with you later. Silence crashed over the foyer. Cassandra looked around, at the security guard avoiding her eyes, at Rosa standing with her arms crossed, at Isabella above on the landing, wearing a look that was far too close to approval. You'll regret this, Cassandra hissed, but she turned and climbed the stairs, heels snapping angrily against the marble. Raphael took out his phone. Antonio, bring the car around. We have an emergency. He looked at Kendra. Which hospital? Sir, I can take the bus. Which hospital, Kendra? Grady Memorial. But really, I don't need. You need to get to your mother. Isaiah needs to stop being scared. And neither of you is getting on a bus right now. He nodded toward the door. Come on. 10 minutes later, Kendra sat in the back of a black Mercedes SUV, Isaiah asleep in her arms as the city blurred past. Raphael was in the passenger seat, making rapid calls in Spanish and English, arranging things she couldn't begin to understand. At the hospital, Raphael turned to her. Go check on your mother. I'll stay with Isaiah. You don't have to. I know I don't have to, he said quietly. But I'm going to. Your mother is your priority. Let me help. Inside, Kendra learned her mother had broken her hip and needed surgery. She would be hospitalized for at least a week. Kendra sat in the waiting room, overwhelmed. Isaiah. Work. Bills. Everything spinning. Miss Lewis, a hospital administrator approached. I have good news. Your mother's surgery and hospital stay have been covered by a charitable fund. Everything has been taken care of. Kendra stared. What fund? I'm not at liberty to say, but your mother will receive the best care. Raphael. Could only be him. Outside. She found him on a bench with Isaiah on his lap. Raphael held a new storybook, reading with animated voices that made Isaiah giggle. Mama! Isaiah scrambled down. Mr. Raphael bought me a book and ice cream, and he talks funny like the abuelas at my school. Raphael stood, brushing off his suit. How's your mother? She needs surgery. They say she'll be okay. Kendra's voice shook. Mr. Santos, I don't know how to thank you. Don't. He cut her off gently. Family emergencies happen. You needed help. I provided it. That's all. The hospital bill. Kendra. His voice was firm but not unkind. Pride is a luxury you can't afford right now. Your mother needs surgery. Your son needs stability. Let me help. Pay me back by continuing to be the person who reads Garcia Marquez in Spanish on the bus at night. Deal? Tears blurred her vision. She nodded. Good. Now. Do you have someone who can watch Isaiah while you work? My neighbor, maybe. I'll figure something out. Raphael considered her for a moment. Bring him to the house. What? Bring Isaiah to work. The East Wing is empty. Rosa can watch him. Isabella will probably adopt him if I'm not careful. It's safer than leaving him with someone you don't fully trust. Mr. Santos, I couldn't possibly. Yes, you can. And you will. He handed his keys to Antonio. Antonio will drive you home. Take tomorrow off. When you return, bring him. Your wife will never allow. My wife, Raphael said quietly, doesn't make decisions about my staff or my house. I do. And I've decided. He looked at Isaiah, who yawned widely. Besides, I think this little guy and I are going to be friends. Right, Isaiah? Right? Isaiah mumbled sleepily. As they drove home, Kendra held her son and tried to make sense of everything. Raphael had defended her. He'd paid for her mother's care. He'd opened his home for her child. And he'd done it with a calm certainty, as if helping her was the only logical choice. She didn't know what to do with this version of him. The powerful, dangerous man who had spent an hour reading stories to a 5-year-old with genuine warmth. All she knew was that she was falling into something deep and complicated, and she didn't know how to stop. Back at the mansion, Raphael stood in his study overlooking the city lights. Isabella joined him, handing him a drink. That was quite a display, she said. She needed help. So do a lot of people. You don't usually get personally involved. Raphael said nothing for a moment. She's different. I can see that. The question is, can you handle what comes next? Cassandra won't let this go. You humiliated her in front of the entire staff, and over a maid. Over a person being threatened during a family crisis, he corrected sharply. Raphael. Isabella's tone softened. I like Kendra. She's strong. She's genuine. But you're married. You're not free to. I know what I'm not free to do. His voice hardened. But I can protect someone who works for me. I can make sure her mother gets medical care. I can help her son. Those things I can do. And I will. And if it becomes more than that? He didn't answer. Because he wasn't sure. Or because he was very sure, and that was the problem. The next 2 weeks found a fragile balance. Isaiah became a bright presence in the East Wing, charming everyone. Isabella spoiled him. Antonio played cards with him. Rosa fed him like he was her own grandchild. Kendra worked harder than ever. She finished the Spanish novel and left it on Raphael's desk with a handwritten note about cyclical time and inherited burdens. He replied with another book, Neruda's poetry. A dangerous rhythm formed. Raphael working late in his study. Kendra finishing her tasks, wandering into the library. Conversations through the open doorway, about books, language, dreams, childhood, everything and nothing. They never touched. They never broke a rule. But the air between them hummed with something unspoken, undeniable. Cassandra watched with a cold, measured fury. The breaking point arrived on a rainy Wednesday evening. Raphael had been away on business for 5 days. Isaiah had a severe asthma attack on the second day, and Rosa had called him immediately. He arranged for the family doctor to make a house call, something Kendra could never have afforded. Dr. Martinez prescribed new medication and left precise instructions. When Raphael returned that night, drenched from the rain and still in travel clothes, his first question was about Isaiah. Kendra was in the kitchen helping Rosa prepare dinner. How is he? He asked. Startled, she looked up. He's much better, she said. The new medicine had worked. Show me, Raphael said, not as a request. Kendra led him to the East Wing, where Isabella sat reading and Isaiah curled on a couch under a blanket, sleepy but well. Isaiah brightened at the sight of Raphael. "Bella's reading me about knights," he announced. Raphael sat on the couch edge and checked the boy's forehead with the back of his hand. "No fever. You scared everyone, little man. No more of that." The moment stretched, soft, domestic, until Cassandra's voice shattered it. She stood in the doorway, dressed for an evening out, perfume dripping and contempt sharp as a blade. "How touching," she said. The sight of the man she'd married in a tender scene with the household help enraged her. What would the family say? Raphael rose slowly. "Cassandra, we need to talk." "Not here." He looked to Isabella. "Can you take him?" Isabella drew Isaiah closer and deliberately turned her back to Cassandra. Raphael's hand brushed Kendra's arm, perhaps a warning, perhaps comfort, before he guided Kendra away. In the hallway, the confrontation detonated. Cassandra hissed that she had tried to be patient, that she had ignored Raphael's odd sympathies, until he brought a child into their home and made him comfortable while Raphael behaved like a compassionate man. "She's a maid, Raphael. She's nothing. And you're making me look a fool." "You're making yourself look a fool," Raphael replied evenly. "Kendra is an employee who experienced a family emergency. I helped. That's it." Cassandra laughed, bitter. "You think I don't see how you look at her? The staff talks. Everyone knows." "Knows what?" Raphael asked. "That you're falling for her," Cassandra spat. "You're in love with the maid. Everyone can see it." Silence pressed in. Kendra, frozen in the hall, watched something shift in Raphael's eyes, the admission he'd been avoiding. Then, flat and final, "Get out." "What?" Cassandra's face contorted. "Pack your things. Go stay with your mother in Charleston. I need time to think, and I can't do it with you here stirring drama." His voice was calm, but the command left no room for argument. "If you refuse, I'll have Antonio drive you." Cassandra's fury twisted into a cruel sneer. She turned and saw Kendra pressed against the wall. "You?" she snarled and advanced, aiming venom at the maid. "You came into my house with your poverty and your sob stories and your little bastard. Watch your mouth." Raphael cut in, his voice hard. "You will not speak to her that way. You'll choose her over me?" Cassandra shrieked. "She's nothing. She's not even pretty. Just some broke black girl who—" Kendra's response was a single, explosive slap that echoed through the hallway. But it wasn't Raphael who struck Cassandra. It was Kendra, her palms stinging, chest heaving. Rage that had built for weeks finally unleashed. "My son," Kendra said, voice trembling, eyes blazing, "is not a bastard. He's brilliant and kind, and he has more grace in his little finger than you'll ever have. I may be poor, I may be a maid, but I have never treated another human being the way you treat people." A red mark bloomed on Cassandra's cheek. She recovered with a smile that was all ice. "You assaulted me in front of witnesses. I could have you arrested. I could ruin you." "Do it," Kendra dared. "Call the police. Tell them how you tormented me for weeks, breaking things, blaming me, threatening my job every time your husband showed me decency. Tell them about the crystal swan you threw at my head. I dare you." Raphael cut through the tension. "Pack now. You have 1 hour before Antonio takes you to the airport." Cassandra's smile soured, but her parting promise was venomous. "When I come back, she'll be gone. That child will be gone. We'll remember our vows and the power of my family." She swept away, heels snapping like gunshots, leaving Kendra trembling with adrenaline. She had slapped her employer's wife. She had likely just guaranteed her own ruin. She braced for the fallout. Instead, Raphael laughed, surprised, genuine, a sound that cracked something loose in him. "Did you just slap my wife?" he asked, incredulous. Then softer, "I'm so sorry. I'll pack. You're not going anywhere." He stepped closer. The hallway suddenly felt too small. "You've endured her abuse without complaint. You've worked twice as hard as everyone else. You defended your son when she called him a bastard. That's not a firing offense. That's being a good mother." Cassandra would sue, he allowed, and her family was powerful. You said so yourself, he told Kendra, but he snapped his jaw shut and hardened his stance. My family is more powerful, and I protect what's mine. My employees, my home, he faltered, the unsaid hanging in the air. They stood dangerously close, the charged history between them crackling. Late-night conversations, small mercies, careful avoidance of forbidden things. Isaiah's voice, small and bright, broke the spell as he padded into the hall, rubbing his eyes. Papa! Kendra scooped him up, grateful and shattered. I'll take him home, she said. He shouldn't be here for this. Antonio will drive you, Raphael said, his tone switching back to the man in control. Take tomorrow off. I need to deal with things. When you come back, we'll talk about what happens next. That night in her tiny apartment, Isaiah snoring beside her, Kendra tried to make sense of everything. She had slapped Cassandra Peton Santos. Raphael had laughed and defended her. He had called her his in an unspoken way, and Cassandra had been right. Everyone could see what was happening. She was falling for Raphael Santos, and he was falling for her. It was impossible and dangerous and could destroy them both. Still, they couldn't stop it. The storm was coming, and there was no turning back. 2 days of tense silence followed. Kendra stayed away from the mansion, visiting her mother in the hospital and wrestling with the consequences. Her mother, weakened but lucid, looked at her bruised cheek and said plainly, "You're in love with him." "Mama, it's not," Kendra began. "It is," her mother said, taking her hand. "I've seen how you talk about him, how he helped Isaiah. He treats you with respect, but he's married and he's dangerous. What's your plan?" "I don't have one," Kendra admitted. "You need to decide if you can live with the consequences. His world is not ours. In our world, you work hard and keep your head down. In his, people disappear. Businesses burn. Marriages are contracts." Kendra knew her mother was right. On the 3rd day, Rosa called. "He needs to see you. Come tonight after dinner. Come to his study. The mansion is quiet. And whatever you do, think carefully before you answer. He's not himself. I've never seen him like this." Raphael's study was on the 3rd floor, overlooking the city. Kendra had never been inside before. It was masculine and elegant, dark wood, leather furniture, walls lined with books in multiple languages. Raphael stood at the window, hands in his pockets, still as a statue. "Close the door." She did. They stood in silence for a long moment. "My marriage to Cassandra was arranged," he said finally, not turning around. "Her father's company had connections we needed. My father's organization had protection her family wanted. I was 28. She was 24. We both knew what we were signing up for." Kendra didn't speak, just listened. "I've tried to be fair to her, give her the life she wanted. Money, status, freedom to do whatever she pleased as long as she was discreet. In return, she played the role of Mrs. Santos. It worked well enough." He turned, and Kendra's breath caught at the intensity in his eyes. "Until you, Mr. Santos. Raphael. When we're alone, I'm Raphael." "Raphael," she said softly. "I never meant to cause problems in your marriage." "I know. That's what makes this so damn complicated." He crossed to his desk, picking up a folder. "Cassandra's family sent this. It's a reminder of all the business arrangements tied to our marriage, contracts, deals, political connections. If I divorce her, it costs me a lot. So you're going to stay with her?" 3 days ago, I would have said yes. That's how this world works. You make sacrifices for the family, for the business. Personal happiness is secondary. He set the folder down. But then I realized I've been justifying my own unhappiness for years, telling myself that loving someone was a luxury I couldn't afford, that my life was set on a path and deviation wasn't possible. What changed? "You slapped my wife for calling your son a bastard." He smiled slightly. "You, this woman who has every reason to play it safe, to keep her head down, to accept whatever scraps of respect you're given. You stood up and defended what mattered to you. And I realized I've spent 15 years not doing that. Not fighting for what I actually want. Kendra's heart hammered. What do you want? Raphael closed the distance between them in 3 strides. He didn't touch her, but she could feel the heat of him, smell his cologne, see the conflict and decision in his eyes. I want to wake up next to someone who reads Garcia Marquez in Spanish because she's determined to improve herself. I want to have dinner with a 5-year-old who asks a million questions and isn't afraid of me. I want to talk about books at midnight with someone who understands why they matter. His voice dropped even lower. I want you, Kendra. I want Isaiah. I want a life that feels real instead of performed. You're married. Not for long. I met with my lawyers this morning. The divorce will be expensive and messy, but it's happening. Cassandra and I signed a prenup. She'll be financially comfortable. Her family's contracts will need to be renegotiated, which will cost me time and money, but I'm doing it. Kendra took a step back, her mind reeling. You can't blow up your entire life for me. For us, that's what I should have done years ago. Kendra, I'm not doing this just because of you. You made me realize that I've been existing instead of living. But the life I want, it includes you, if you want it too. Your world is dangerous. Yes, people will judge us, say terrible things. Yes, Isaiah could be in danger just by association with me, which is why I've already arranged for security. Nothing will happen to him or to you. I promise. Raphael's eyes were steady, certain. I know this is insane. I know you have every reason to say no and walk away. But I'm asking anyway. Be with me. Let me do this right. Divorce Cassandra, make a clean break, and then we see where this goes. No pressure, no guarantees, just possibility. Kendra thought about her mother's warning, about the risks, about how this could all go horribly wrong. She thought about Isaiah growing up in Raphael's dangerous world. But she also thought about Raphael sitting on a hospital bench reading to her son, about late-night conversations that felt like coming home, about how he'd protected her, stood up for her, seen her as a person instead of just a maid. Possibility, she repeated. That's all I'm offering. I can't promise perfect or safe or easy, but I can promise honest. I can promise I'll fight for us. And I can promise that whatever happens, you and Isaiah will be protected. Before she could respond, the study door burst open. Cassandra stood there, and she wasn't alone. Behind her were 2 men in expensive suits. Her father and her brother, Kendra realized from the resemblance. I told you, Cassandra said triumphantly. They're together. I have witnesses now. Her father stepped forward, an older man with cold eyes and a politician's smile. Senator Charles Peton. Kendra recognized him from news coverage. Raphael, the senator said. I'm disappointed. When Cassandra called me in hysterics about your situation, I didn't believe it. The Santos family has always been known for their discipline, their respect for tradition. Senator Peton, Raphael said, voice like ice. This is a private conversation in my private study. You weren't invited. I don't need an invitation to protect my daughter from humiliation. He gestured at Kendra dismissively. This woman needs to be removed from your home immediately, and you and Cassandra need to remember the agreements that bind your families together. Those agreements don't include tolerating abuse of my staff. Your staff? Cassandra laughed. You just told her you're divorcing me for her. Don't pretend this is about employee treatment. The senator's expression hardened. Raphael, let me be clear. If you proceed with divorcing my daughter, especially for someone like her, you'll lose more than business contracts. I have friends in law enforcement, in government. I can make your operations very difficult. The Santos family has always operated in a gray area. I could make that area much darker. It was a threat, simple and direct. Raphael smiled, and it was the most dangerous expression Kendra had ever seen on him. Senator, you forget who you're threatening. I have documentation of every illegal deal you've ever made through my family's connections. Bribes, payoffs, indiscretions that would end your political career in an afternoon. You want to threaten me with law enforcement? I'll bury you so deep you'll never see sunlight again. The senator's face went purple. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Raphael pulled out his phone, showing him the screen. Whatever was on it made the older man go white. I've been waiting for an excuse to cut ties with you for years. Your family is corrupt and sloppy, and you've been more liability than asset. So here's what's going to happen. You accept the divorce settlement my lawyer's present, you walk away quietly, and in exchange all that documentation stays buried. Refuse, and I send copies to every news outlet and prosecutor in 3 states. Cassandra grabbed her father's arm. Daddy, do something. He can't, Raphael said. Yes, I can. His attention shifted to his wife. Cassandra, you'll get everything we agreed on in the prenup, plus an additional settlement to keep you comfortable. But that's contingent on you leaving quietly and never harassing Kendra or Isaiah again. If I hear you've said one word against her, if you try to damage her reputation in any way, the deal is off and you get nothing. You can't do this to me, Cassandra whispered, tears streaking her face. Real tears this time. I already have. Antonio has the papers ready to be filed tomorrow. You have 24 hours to sign them or I proceed without your cooperation and make this as public and painful as possible. The senator straightened his jacket, trying to regain dignity. You'll regret this, Santos. Maybe, Raphael said, but I won't regret leaving a loveless marriage built on blackmail and convenience. Get out of my house. After they left, Cassandra sobbing, the senator making empty threats, her brother silent and furious. The study fell into stunned quiet. Kendra found her voice first. You just declared war on a U.S. senator for me. I declared independence from people who've been using me for years. His gaze softened. But yes, also for you. For the possibility of us. This is insane. Completely. He crossed to her, and this time he did touch her. Just his hand against her cheek, gentle and certain. But I've spent 15 years being sane and strategic and putting everyone else first. I want to be insane. I want to be selfish. I want you. Kendra closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. Every logical part of her brain screamed warnings, but her heart was already decided. Isaiah comes first, she whispered. Always. If this puts him in danger, he'll have the same security I have. Better. Nothing happens to him, Kendra. On my life. And when your world comes calling, when there's violence or danger, I'll handle it like I always have. But you and Isaiah will be protected. That's not negotiable. She opened her eyes, looking up at him. Why me? Really? Because you're real. Because you read books that challenge you and defend your son like a lioness and work 3 jobs without complaining. Because you make me want to be better than the role I was born into. His thumb stroked her cheek. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to be human instead of just powerful. Kendra made her decision. She rose onto her toes and kissed him. The kiss was soft and tentative, full of promise and fear and possibility. Raphael's arms came around her, pulling her close but not suffocating her. The kiss deepened, melting years of loneliness and exhaustion and silence. Terrifying, wonderful, probably a huge mistake, but it felt right. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Raphael rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to do this right, he murmured. Clean divorce. Time for everyone to adjust. No rushing. How slow? He smiled. Well, maybe not that slow. They spent the next 2 hours in his study talking, really talking about her dreams to finish her degree, his plans to transition some family businesses into legitimate ones, Isaiah's future, how to blend their wildly different worlds. At midnight, Rosa knocked softly. Mr. Santos. Cassandra and her family had left the property, and Isaiah woke up asking for his mama. Reality settled over them again. I should go, Kendra said reluctantly. I know. Raphael walked her to the door. Kendra, no matter what happens next, no matter how messy this gets, thank you. For what? She whispered. For being brave enough to let me try. As Antonio drove Kendra and a sleepy Isaiah home, she stared out at the city lights and tried to believe that any of this could work. She'd gone from being a struggling maid to becoming the woman Rafael Santos was divorcing his wife for, the woman who had stood up to a senator, who had changed everything with one slap and one kiss. It should have terrified her. It did. But it also felt inevitable, like every bus ride and night shift and moment of hardship had been leading her to that library, to that conversation, to him. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Cassandra signed quietly, took her settlement, and moved to Charleston. The senator tried twice to create trouble for Raphael, but each time mysterious documents about his corruption reached the press. He stopped trying soon after. Raphael and Kendra began dating properly. Dinners, movies, letting Isaiah get used to him as more than just Mr. Raphael. The mansion staff watched their once cold, controlled boss transform into a man who laughed easily, who played with a 5-year-old, who looked at Kendra like she was the only thing in the world. Isabella called it the best thing that ever happened to her brother. Even Antonio admitted he'd never seen Raphael genuinely happy before. There were challenges. Press attention, judgment from certain business associates, Kendra adjusting to security, wealth, and a life she never imagined. But they faced everything side by side. And then, on a spring evening nearly a year after the day Cassandra tore her uniform, Raphael proposed. Not in the mansion, but in the tiny apartment where Kendra used to read Garcia Marquez by a warm lamp, the place where she once dreamed of something better. "I want to start from here," he said, kneeling in her worn living room. "From where you were real before my world complicated everything. Kendra Lewis, will you marry me?" She said yes. 2 years later, Kendra stood in the mansion's library, not as a maid, but as the lady of the house, though she never fully embraced the title. Through the window, she watched Raphael teaching Isaiah to ride a bike in the gardens, both of them laughing when the boy wobbled and caught himself. Her mother, fully recovered, lived in the guest house now. She had made peace with Kendra's choices after seeing how deeply Raphael cherished both her daughter and grandson. Kendra had finished her degree at Emory, studying literature. She was working on a thesis about Garcia Marquez, the writer who, without knowing it, changed her entire path. The house felt different now, softer, warmer. Raphael stepped back from the most dangerous corners of the family business, focusing on the legitimate operations. They still lived with security and the realities of his world, but Raphael built sturdy walls between his family and the violence that once defined him. "Mama!" Isaiah, now 7 and bright as sunshine, ran in. "Did you see? I rode without training wheels. I saw, baby. You were amazing." Raphael followed, sweaty and grinning. "He's a natural, completely fearless. He gets that from you," Kendra said, rising to kiss him. "He gets it from his mother," Raphael murmured. "The woman who slapped a senator's daughter and changed both our lives." He pulled her close. "No regrets." "None," she answered. "Only that I didn't find you sooner." That night, after Isaiah was asleep and the mansion was quiet, Raphael found Kendra in the library reading. He sat beside her and pulled her feet into his lap. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Destiny. Coincidence. How I took a job as a maid and ended up here." "You ended up here because you're brilliant and brave and refused to let anyone diminish you." He kissed her ankle. "I'm the lucky one in this story." "We're both lucky," she said softly. They sat together in the hush of the library, and Kendra thought about the frightened woman she once was. Overqualified, exhausted, hiding her son, trying to survive. She thought about Cassandra's cruelty, about her own breaking point, about the slap that changed everything. She thought about Raphael choosing her over convenience, over power, over the safer path. And she thought about love. Real, complicated, hard-won love that reshaped them both. "Raphael," she whispered. "Thank you." "For what?" he asked. "For seeing me, for choosing us, for being brave enough to want something real." He smiled and drew her closer. "Always. From the first day in that library when you were reading Garcia Marquez, I knew you were going to change my life. I just didn't know how completely." Outside, the city glowed under a million lights. Inside, a former maid and a mafia boss sat together in a library filled with stories, building a life neither expected, but both had fought for. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. This story of Raphael, Kendra, and Isaiah reaches its end. A tale of one woman's courage, one man's choice to change, and one moment of standing up for what matters that transformed 3 lives forever.